Hi, welcome to Hardcover Feedback. I am Kelly Campos, and this is my co-host Brandy Smits. As this is our very first show, we're going to start off with a little introduction about ourselves, just so you kind of know where we're coming from. I'm originally from Detroit, and I am a journalism major over at South Suburban College now. My background is that I used to do a TV show in Detroit for PBS called Smart TV.
I'm Brandy Smits. I'm from this general area. I am going to Governor State right now for my bachelor's in English, and eventually I'll be getting my master's in library science. And I've worked at the Lansing Public Library for 6.5 years now, so I have a little bit of experience in that.
She's the old lady. Our first book that we're doing today is called Lulu Dark Can See Through Walls, and it's by a guy named Bennett Madison. He's a young author. He went to Sarah Lawrence College, and this book, I really liked it. It was a mystery aimed at teenagers, but it is so not talking down to anybody. It was very interesting. The plot had twists and turns everywhere, and the protagonist, I mean, Brandy, come on, you had to love her.
It's like, it's kind of like, you know, she's this really independent, girl. The main thing I liked about it is the fact that the parents really aren't seen. It's kind of like all independent kids, and they're not wealthy, but they have enough means that they can get on their own.
Well, speaking of the not wealthy thing, the whole plot revolves around her faux designer name bag.
Kate Spade.
Her faux Kate Spade bag, which her purse gets stolen at a club, which the purse has the phone number of a very handsome up-and-coming rock star in it. Alfie Romero. So, of course, she has to find this purse because Lulu continues to say that she hates Nancy Drew. She's not a girl detective. She's not nosy, because what does she say that girl detectives do? They
stick their noses where they don't belong, and they have their little notebooks, and she doesn't really have a journal, but she just feels that sometimes she has to write things down in order to remember things.
Oh, of course.
Because she's not a girl detective.
Well, Lulu is very snarky, and people will love Lulu. You love to hate her, because she's rude. She's rude, too.
She has such an attitude.
Definitely. But you still like her. She's a very entertaining character to read, and everything she does makes sense as she's trying to find out who stole her purse, which turns into a murder investigation and, you know, a girl with a tattoo showing up in the river. There's so many twists and turns to this plot that...
And then, of course, there's the love story with the best friend, which every teen story has to have.
Of course it has to have it.
Has to have the little love story, but... Yeah, all in all, it's a really interesting book. It's fun to read. It's not like a really insightful book, but it definitely is entertaining, and it gives you a kind of an insight to the upper class teens of. It's not set in New York. They made up a story or a town called Halo City, but it's kind of like New York.
Yeah, it reminds me of a Gotham City type of place too. You know, so for people with that comic book background, it kind of has that overview sort of, where there's all these archetypal characters, and you've got the club, and you've got this. You know, every little niche is filled with people to populate that niche. But Lulu also she lives with her father, not her mother, which. There's a second book to this series, and that second book then begins to revolve around the mother character, which once you get into those, then you'll, without giving too much away, it's the Summer of the Fox, and the fox is the mom. So, or we think it is anyway. So I think that's a great little story to start off with, is this one, and then going into that second novel.
Yeah, the mom is a kind of B actress where she's really not very skilled in her profession. Like, one of the things they mentioned was that she's playing Julia Roberts' mother at one point in time, and then she's playing Penelope Cruz's secretary who gets killed in the first act. But, you know, she's making her way up to the top. So it's
slowly but surely.
It kind of you know, you understand where she gets her little. Lulu gets her sparky attitude from.
Yeah, most certainly.
And her gay father.
Oh yes, her father is gay and has his partner with him, and they're very much background characters, though. Although they add a lot of flavor to, again, her sense of fashion, which is very integral into the story, especially when you find out, oh, lo and behold, there's somebody impersonating Lulu Dark. So the fashion all plays a pivotal role in it, starting with that handbag which gets stolen all the way through the book, which especially for teenagers nowadays, and even people a little older, fashion is something that we see all the time. It's on ETV, it's on the regular news, it's on everything, and when it's so much a part of your life and you integrate it into a mystery story that's as fast-paced and as interesting as this one is, then it just makes it so much more fun to read.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, it's not a mystery, but it definitely has those components that you would normally find in a mystery. And there are so few teen mysteries that it is a really great thing to see one that is so, aimed at
Right.
only teens. And
Right.
Adults could read it, but it's not the same.
Right.
It really isn't. I don't even think
Exactly.
I completely get it because it's definitely not from my time. But
Exactly.
It's definitely an interesting book.
But so Bennett Madison, I think he did a great job overall. Out of our 4-star system, I give it 4 stars as a great teen mystery novel.
Yeah, I will agree. I'll give it 4 stars because, as far as I know, there's really nothing else that compares in that genre. So until I find one, it definitely has 4 stars.
We are 100% agreed.
Oh yes.
We'll be back in a minute.
Welcome back. For our next book, we have Jennifer Government by Max Berry. Now, I love this book. I'm not going to lie. This is one of my favorite books. Max Berry is a young author from Australia. This is his 2nd book. Basically, this takes place in the recent future. It doesn't really give a specific time. It's kind of like everyone in the world is basically owned by America. There are a few European countries and Africa and stuff like that are not, but everyone else is USA affiliated territories, stuff like that.
And what that means is that the USA has been taken over by capitalism. The government is pretty much ineffectual. And what happens is Hack Nike, a young guy who works for Nike, because your last name says who you are, which is who you work for, which is so close to being real right now.
And even schools, the kids, all their schools are owned by corporations. So even if your mom is Jennifer Government, Kate is Kate Mattel because that's the
school she goes
and
to.
They get all the new Barbies and stuff like that. And it's
Which
kind of
is
actually a pretty sweet
cool
setup for the kids.
But so Hack Nike, this young, fairly ineffectual guy who works in a non-important area of Nike, goes to the wrong floor to get some water. And he is basically coerced into signing this contract without reading it that says he has to kill 14 people as a promotion for Nike's new shoes to give it street cred, which that again is something that is so close to true.
So true.
Where kids nowadays are buying these shoes that have an association with danger, with street cred.
Otherwise, it's not cool.
Otherwise, it's not cool. So Hack doesn't want to do that because he has a conscience. He goes to the police. Well, the police subcontract the job to the NRA, who then goes and kills 14 people, which brings in our title character of Jennifer Government.
Well, the main problem is that there's two major credit card companies, the US Alliance and the Team America. And if you're part of Team America, then you don't do anything with US Alliance. So by Nike going to Hack and Hack going to the police, that was a big mistake because the police are Team America.
And Nike
is US Alliance, and the NRA is US Alliance. So then they have this whole problem of rubbing out the guy who has, nothing to do with it.
Who was the weak link between.
And then there's the government on top of all of that, which has no affiliation with anything except trying to keep some kind of law,
And
which
keep
is
people
all for
safe.
naught. It's like a moot point. It never works.
So with the beginning of this plot, which starts off this way, then steamrolls into this such very intricate. How many characters are there? There's Hack Nike. There's his girlfriend Violet, who is doesn't have a last name,
Violet
which means she's basically a
Enterprises.
bum. Exactly, because she's trying to sell her software to ExxonMobil or somebody. There's the 2 Johns, John Nike VP and John Nike his assistant, who are murderous.
cutthroat,
literally
yeah.
murderous people. And then there's all these other smaller characters, some of them red shirts, as we were calling them earlier.
They're just not really important.
Not really
They're
too
just
important.
kind of fodder there for the rest of them.
Right.
And there's Billy NRA. Billy basically lived in Texas, decided that he wanted to move and go somewhere so he can go skiing. All he wanted to do his whole life is just ski. Somehow manages to wind up in New Zealand and gets sucked into the NRA and forced to do all these killings and shootings.
Snipers.
And then he's confused for Bill NRA, who's someone completely different, but with this form of identity that they have, it's really easy to mess them up.
To mess people up, right. And I think this book, it's so intricate and so detailed that it's really kind of hard to describe, other than, like you said, it's a futuristic but near futuristic thing. Everybody is designated by their affiliation with somebody. The government is so ineffectual because they don't have funding, because we're based on a capitalist thing. There was something in the news recently about a woman trying to sell advertising space at a football game on her belly because she was pregnant. And that is so close to everything that they were talking about in Jennifer Government. It's that taking over of capitalism into our everyday lives. Everything is about money. And then you realize through reading this book that you're really reading about something that is so close to today.
It could so happen.
It could so happen.
Like when one of the characters gets injured, and in order for the ambulance to even come and pick them up, they have to have a credit card number and make sure that it's accepted by that, hospital. Mm-hmm. It's so ridiculous, but if you think about it, how far away is that really from what's going on in the world today? It could really happen.
And that's one thing I love about science fiction, especially science fiction like Jennifer Government, is it shows you today and our world through a lens that lets you look at yourself without really judging yourself, because it's not us, it's fiction. It lets you really see some things in a different way. This book was definitely one of my favorite ones that we read. It was so exciting. I could totally see it as a top name Hollywood movie. It was very interesting.
There was buzz a while ago that they were making this into a movie. Ooh. I don't know if they're actually still going to do that. I think it would be awesome because it would just, the storyline is so visual as it is that to actually see it come to life would be amazing. Yeah, and
it is as cerebral as we're talking about, but it's also such an action-packed book. There's shooting and flying through windows and kids getting kidnapped and people dying and falling off of balconies in the mall on top of cars, and there's all this action-packed stuff that really is so interesting to read. I could only imagine what it would be like to see it on the screen. So overall, what do you give it?
Oh, I definitely give this 4 stars. No doubt, 4 stars.
Unfortunately, once again, we are in agreement, complete agreement. 4 stars, and I would give it 5 if I could. It was absolutely enthralling. I didn't want to stop reading this book.
I want more. I want a sequel. I want to know what happens.
All right, Max Berry, you heard it. Do a sequel. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back. Our last book that we're going to do today is by Lorna Landvik. It's called Angry Housewives Eating Bonbons. I love the title. It's a very funny title. The basic story of this book is it follows a group of women who live in the same cul-de-sac of a brand new neighborhood. And it follows them from the 60s on up through the 90s. They are all housewives, and the main character's name is Faith. Faith is a very interesting character for me. She has twins. She's a stay-at-home mom, like most of them, but she has lots of secrets, and she never really explains her secrets until pretty much the end of the story, and that keeps her from really getting into the friendships that she forms with these women, which basically that's what this book is. It's a book about friendships between the 5 women and a couple gay characters that live next door.
That they let pose in. Join in.
And what's fun about this book is they build their friendship around a book club. Now, the book club that they do, it starts off because of that snow fight that they have. They have a snowball fight, and they get Faith outside, and that's how they meet and have fun. I personally would love to have a snowball fight with you, Brandy. So let's
That would be
let's
great, but
plan
there's
on
no more
doing that.
snow anymore, so we're out of luck.
I enjoyed this book in many ways. It read to me like a romance novel, even though it wasn't about a romance between a man and a woman. The relationships between these 5 women and what they go through throughout the decades really feels like a romance storyline to me, and that I enjoyed. It was a light read, and it really felt fun. It wasn't anything earth-shattering, although some of the things within each decade felt a little predictable to me.
I didn't have a problem reading the book. I thought it was, it was a light read and it did entertain. I just really kind of got tired of the soap opera lives that they lived. It was like I was watching daytime TV. Everything that happened, there's, the protester whose brother goes to Vietnam, and there's the widower who, ends up, trying to adopt a baby, but then they take it away, and then she gets her chance again, and the sex pot neighbor, like woman next door who everyone always says is so risque and always gets in trouble.
It's very true. There were certain archetypes of characters, and they definitely stuck one in each slot. There's definitely one character for each personality. And again, of course, there were things that were pretty much indicative of each decade. Like you said, the protester and her brother just happens to go to Vietnam and then happens to come back and have post-traumatic stress syndrome and then happens to become a peace protester. So there were definitely things that were, like I said, predictable, and they definitely were indicative of each decade. But I think that's what would make this book enjoyable for people who lived through those times, because they're bound to know somebody who was like that. It wasn't our decade, it wasn't our time, so it was a little removed from me, but I still enjoyed the basic plot of it. Now, my favorite parts about this book were Faith's letters to her mother. I mean, it was obvious there was something going on there, and her mom was gone by this point. But they were just so insightful and so real. They definitely read to me like the most real thing in the book.
That was the other part that I really liked, were the letters, because it kind of brought it back down to earth, and it wasn't so up in the clouds going, wow, what's going to happen next, and
Right.
who's sleeping with who and who's hitting who, and it was just, other than that was kind of like the point where it made it more of a reality thing.
Yeah.
And so it was, my other favorite part about the books that I really liked was reading about how the kids would grow up. And
Yeah.
because everyone had kids, and that was kind of the part that I liked the most, was with the circuses and the kids
The
playing.
circus, how cool was
I
that?
love that. I want my neighborhood circus. I want everyone in the neighborhood to come out and be like, part of the circus. That part was really great.
I know. What was that, on 4th of July?
I think it was,
Every
yeah.
year they had this big circus instead of having a block party or something, and the kids would go out and do a talent show. It reminded me of the Little Rascals or something.
Yeah,
and that would have been so cool. So I definitely liked the atmosphere that they gave this little neighborhood, and that was definitely one of the high points of the book, along with the letters. So I think we agree on that. I definitely felt like the romance novel aspect of this book I got into, because I like that kind of thing. Forgive me, but they're my guilty pleasure. A steamy romance novel is good to go. Even though, like I said before, even though this is not about a man and a woman meeting and falling in love, and it still has that feeling so much, because the relationship between women who are really close friends can be just as powerful and just as strong as any other type of love. And I think that's one thing this book really capitalizes on.
Yeah, it is a book about relationships.
Right.
It is. It is not a book about the husband and wife relationships, which are mentioned, but
Yeah, they're mentioned.
It's not really, that's not what it's about. It's about the relationship of, the women. There's a part where 2 of the women stop speaking to each other, and it's like hard to get past that, because they've been like the best of friends, and they are inseparable, and then they don't want to talk to each other anymore. It is kind of hard to get past that, and you're kind of, what's going to happen, because
Right.
they're all going to be friends again in the end.
Because how could they not?
Because that's the way. Well, that's the way the book goes.
starts.
The way the book goes is, everyone's going to be happy in the end. but
Right. Which is a little,
It's a little schmaltzy for my taste.
a little schmaltzy. That's a good word.
Thanks.
Schmaltzy.
A little schmaltzy.
We'll use that word another time.
Okay.
No. So all in all, I think I give this book 3 stars. It was entertaining, it was a light read, it was fun to read, it's not earth-shattering, and I probably wouldn't necessarily keep it on my shelf and read it again, but I would definitely check it out from the library.
I would have to give it only 2 stars. Like I said, it was an okay read, but I don't know if I would recommend it to anybody. I really wouldn't. I think that it's just, you know, it's fun to read if you come across it, but it's definitely not something that you should go out and, you know, buy tomorrow. It's kind of, you know, I have time, I'll read it kind of thing, so.
Gotcha. So I'm saying check it out from the library, and you're saying maybe get it for an airport read or something.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's recap what we talked about today. First, we did Lulu Dark Can See Through Walls by Bennett Madison. Brandy gave it 4 stars. I also gave it 4 stars. It's a teen read mystery. The second book we did today was Jennifer Government, and that we both gave 4 stars as well. This is a sci-fi action book. The third and final book we've done today, Lorna Landvik, Angry Housewives Eating Bonbons, a split vote, 3 stars and 2 stars. But you be the judge on that. You can check out any of these books at your local library, I'm sure, and we will see you next time.